Well, everybody, Three at the Back is back tomorrow. That will be out. Make sure you are checking that out, everybody. Thank you so much. It's the show with myself and Benjamin Bloom, and of course, Matt SB, which you guys are all a big fan of, where we're really going to go into the detail of the game. I like to do a little bit of a weekend review post. Post the newly promoted sides and a couple of the others in and around the bottom. Little bit of a succinct small little bit of which you guys can get your teeth sunk into after the game week. Sunderland and Everton have just finished, but I wanted to start off with Nottingham Forest 2, Man United 2. Forest I thought looked very good at the weekend. I thought Savona in there looked excellent. As long as they don't get injuries to the fullbacks, they should be all right. But I think the fight, the desire, the energy, the endeavour under Sean Dyche looks so much more. And the City ground is going to be absolutely imperative for Nottingham Forest going forward. Do I see them in a relegation battle? I don't. I see Forest getting out of it. I think they've got too many top profiles. I think Ryan Yates is probably going to be a starter, in my opinion. And now with Douglas Luiz out with, an injury of which Douglas Luiz has had these bouts of injury problems throughout his career. I actually thought that against Bournemouth, I felt like the two, almost with Luiz and Elliot Anderson, you needed maybe a Ryan Yates in there. I don't think Yates will come out of that side now under a Sean Dyche system. In a Sean Dyche system, you expect him to have a little bit of a workhorse, but someone a little bit in that rear guard of the midfield who can sweep up, does have the legs. That is Ryan Yates. I think Forest will be absolutely fine. And 2 or 3 more wins and they'll be back to maybe where they were, but deserved all 3 points against Man United at the weekend. West Ham, on the other hand, were brilliant. Potts coming in, that midfield, that unathletic midfield. Nuno had the changes at his disposal. The changes at his disposal, which a lot of teams down there don't have. Nuno made the changes. Potts came in. You saw the likes of Matías Fernandes coming in, and you saw Paqueta as well. Paqueta, I think, is so undervalued in that West Ham United side, just even in terms of the gamesmanship, winning free kicks, but his lovely caressing of the ball, his ability to move you through the thirds really quickly as well, his athleticism in himself. I think you have to be an athletic player to be able to play up front and in that midfield. But I think even driving West Ham from deep, Paqueta is such an unsung hero at points for West Ham. The beauty as well is in that midfield where Carragher famously has recently said that they're unathletic. They do have the likes of Magassa, the young 20-year-old they brought in from Monaco off the bench to change proceedings when needed. Really, really important win for West Ham. And I thought, look, a lot of people are saying, well, what about Newcastle? What about Newcastle? I thought West Ham were the better team. All ends up. I thought they were a better team. Potts looks like a revelation. Maybe the next Declan Rice. Who knows? But we're going to be getting into West Ham fully tomorrow. But I thought, they're right back at it now. 7 points. You saw the celebrations with Nuno as well. And Jared Bowen in this game in particular, I wanted to talk about him. He looked a lot freer. The stress in terms of not being able to drag the team up the pitch. I felt against Leeds United, I felt against Brentford, he was almost coming centrally to try and get the ball to drag West Ham up the pitch. But you had the central players to be able to do that by themselves. Really, really important that you just let Jared Bowen and Crescencio Somerville flourish out wide by themselves and not have to come in deep to get West Ham up the pitch. Really important. And with Fulkrug back in a Nuno system, who knows? Could that be Nuno's Chris Wood? We've mentioned that before. Wolverhampton Wanderers sacking Vitor Pereira. Really important. An absolutely dismal display at Craven Cottage. That is something of which we need to really get into when it comes to when it comes to the specifics of Wolves and where do they go. It looks like Gary O'Neill has turned down the option. There's the likes of Muscat and managers like that being touted around. Eric Ten Hag would be an interesting one to bring in to proceedings, wouldn't he? So a lot to discuss there when it comes to Wolves, a brand new horizon, but I do think that is Wolves down for me. I could be wrong, and back-to-back wins can change everything in the Premier League, but back-to-back wins are so difficult to be able to get. But I do think Wolves are going to really struggle going forward. I don't think Eric Ten Hag would probably look at this job and think it's one that he'd go for. Gary O'Neill, maybe for his career development as well, I think it's probably the right time to not take the job, in my opinion. But he has done, as Carragher's mentioned on Monday Night Football, he's done saviour jobs at Bournemouth when it's come to that previously and kept them up. Could that have worked at Wolves? I don't think it would have done. I think it wouldn't have been the right appointment for Wolves fans. Wolves fans, let us know in the comment section below if it would have been. I don't think it'd have been right for them. I don't think it'd have been right for O'Neill as well. Going a little bit further up, Leeds United, not a great sort of weekend for Leeds. Actually, probably thought out of all of them, Leeds was the worst performance. 7 Brighton players out for this one, including the likes of James Milner, Solly March, Garuda. they had a fair few out for this one. Matoma and Leeds really struggled to lay a glove on Brighton, if I'm honest with you. And you can see the flag behind me. If you are a new subscriber, welcome. I am a big Leeds United fan. I do like to talk football as well, so please do consider subscribing. But Leeds were not at it at the weekend, really poor. And it does kind of put the strain and the pressure on the Nottingham Forest game now for Leeds United, and it is coming into sort of must-win territory after the loss against Burnley, where Burnley handled Leeds relatively well at Turf Moor. Leeds had to look at that as a win. We then backed that up, or we sort of, dealt with that loss against Burnley by beating West Ham United. But now in sort of the last 4 games, Leeds United have lost 3 out of those 4, with a really torrid run coming up in November and December. Something to take into context. A really poor loss to Brighton at the weekend, of which Leeds fans would have expected, but that second half was not acceptable. Leeds melted, Brighton grew on the back of, as well, a game midweek, which you thought might have taken the wind out of the Seagulls' flying ability, wingspan, whatever. Trajectory. It didn't. Newsflash. Right, okay. Burnley at the weekend. Still absolutely loving Dubravka. Burnley weren't able to conjure that much against Arsenal. I think they had a 0.45 XG. I'm starting to really like the midfield that Burnley are gathering together. It's almost like a midfield 3 now when you're looking at it. I like the look of Ugachukwu. I liked him. I thought he was a target. I thought he could have been a really good target for Leeds United in the window. Like the balance with him and Josh Cullen, and of course the new man Florentino Luis, who Burnley have been, it felt like they're after for 2 or 3 years. Hartman at the back, he's looking like a real solid signing from the Eredivisie. And I just kind of like some of the profiles in that Burnley side. Twanzebe, Esteve at the back. There seems to be a little bit of continuity there. And you just wonder with Burnley, is it going to be enough? Is it going to be enough? But I really like the fact that they're in games. They're in pretty much most of the games that you'd expect Burnley to be in. Now, a 2-0 loss at home to Arsenal, who are not conceding any goals at this moment in time, is really important as well. But I did think that Burnley had the moments from around about the 70th, 75th minute as well. Burnley did have their moments, but look, you're up against an absolute machine and probably the Premier League winners. But I do like the midfield in particular for Burnley. I think that's something to focus on, and something to focus on as well at 3 with potentially 3 at the back tomorrow at the show with myself, Matt and Ben, which I'm promoting enough of. Okay. And then finally, we finished the weekend review with Sunderland. Sunderland were battling it out with Everton. Now, you've got to look at Iliman Ndiaye. Wow, wow, wow. What an unbelievable goal for Everton. And Everton are in there now. I believe they're on 12 points now after that, which is a good return for them. I thought that Sunderland would get something tonight. I thought that I'd probably nick it. I think I had them down as a 1-0, but I was thinking maybe a 2-1 as well. But I didn't think Everton would come and win. And those first 10, 15 minutes, I thought Everton came out like a house on fire. They were brilliant. Grealish, I believe, hit the post as well a little bit earlier on. They had a couple of shots on goal, as well as the Iliman Ndiaye really trickery wonder goal, wasn't it? Dribbling through 2 or 3 of the Everton players. But I tell you what, from around about the 25th minute onwards, I believe it was, Sunderland just responded so well, and how quick they are on the transition. I think the ability to move into different systems in game. When you're looking at Regis Labrie, they went from a 5-4-1, it felt like, at the very beginning of the game, which was a little bit defensive, a little bit structured, but they obviously moved in possession straight into a 3-4-3. And they can obviously move into a 4-2-3-1 as well. We can see with the changes that they make. But they're just a really well-oiled side. And I believe that's 1 loss in 10 now for Sunderland. And they're just difficult to beat. And you can see with the stride patterns of the likes of Siddiqui, Diarra getting up the pitch. Granted, Xhaka was unbelievable again in terms of his delivery. Michele at the end, when he got the boot to his face, I thought he was going to put that in the back of the net. But even Michele getting on that right-hand side and putting the balls into the box. Gertrude, who looked very good as well. They're just monsters. They're an athletic side, webbed together by good technical footballers. I thought Tri-Hume was very good tonight. I thought Everton came and they were very Everton. I feel like they've dipped off a little bit, but Sunderland continued to grow, and we will get into that a little bit further on during the week. But guys, let me know what you think in the comment section below. Who do you think has impressed you this week, and what is your weekend review? Let me know in the comment section below. We'll be back with 3 at the back and added time later on this week, guys. It's been an absolute pleasure. This is your weekend review. See you soon. Cheers.